Hey everybody, it's Dr. Gilchrist, and I just wanted to show you how to complete the assignment for your Chapter 3 handout, which is basically to do descriptive statistics for a 200-point data set, either using Excel or using something like JAMOVI. So I wanted to make sure that I recorded something that would be able to help you out with this a little bit. So I have pulled up the data. You can find this on my Coddy. It is for use for the Chapter 3 handout. So you can see here that the way that the original data set was done, we've got this nice although a little bit annoying explanation of all of the data. So we've got participant number, we've got gender, we have GPA, subjective well-being, height, and score on the Beck Depression Inventory. Now, a couple of different things that you need to note. Gender here is functioning as a nominal variable. So this is ultimately going to affect the kind of things that we can and cannot do with this data, as we will see later on. GPA, subjective well-being, height, and scores on the Beck Depression Inventory are either interval or ratio data, despite the fact that both subjective well-being and BDI actually start at 1. We're going to go ahead and say that these are on an interval or a ratio scale. So if you want to do this in JAMOVI, you can upload the actual file into JAMOVI, but because this window is here with explanations of what each variable is, I find it a little annoying to remove it. So I'm going to do a quick copy paste. So as you can already see, I've selected the data in Excel, and I'm going to do a quick control. I put my finger on the control button, and I'm going to go ahead and do a quick well, it took all of the data, so let's go ahead and pick our data set. I'm using the arrow keys to kind of navigate this, and we're going to go all the way down to our 200th participant. Let's keep going. We're almost there. All right, so we've hit our 200. I'm going to go ahead and do a Control C, and then I'm going to go ahead and open up JAMOVI. So I've already tried this myself, but I wanted to walk you through this so that you had a pretty good idea of what was going on. Now, if I go ahead and paste, what's going to happen is that you can see that it's been pasted in the first row, but the variable names are not. So I'm going to go in item by item and just update these labels, and then we're just going to delete that top row. So we have participant. This type of data is identification data. Next, we have gender. This is nominal data. We have GPA. We're going to go ahead and make this continuous data. We remove that. We're going to go double click on subjective well-being. And we're going to go ahead and put that as continuous. Then we have height. We're going to go ahead and name that height. And again, we have continuous data. And then we have BDI for our Beck Depression Inventory score, BDI. We're going to hit enter. And we're going to go ahead and mark this as continuous data. Now notice for the ones that I marked as continuous data, because those labels did not count as continuous data, they are not included at this point. But what I want to go ahead and do is get rid of this top row. So I'm going to select the top row. I'm going to right click and I'm going to go ahead and delete that row. It's going to ask me if that's what I wanted, and it absolutely is what I wanted, because otherwise we're going to end up with empty data. So if I want to do some basic descriptive statistics, which is what the handout requires, you need to do a histogram for all of the data that is permissible. Additionally, you need to get some basic descriptive statistics like the mean and also the standard deviation. So you want some basic descriptive statistics here. We can go ahead and do this with exploration. So if you click on this and you go to descriptives, now what's opened up is my data. So I want descriptives on all of my data. So what I'm doing is I'm selecting each of these and I'm dragging them over to the variables section. We don't need to split any of this data. We're also going to go ahead and take a look at, I don't think we need the frequency tables here. So really quick, I want to pull up the statistics. We don't need to worry about missing data here. None of the data should be missing. I want to make sure we have a mean, a median, and a mode. So all three of our measures of central tendency are location measures. We want a standard deviation, minimum, maximum. You can also opt to include the range as well as the interquartile range if you're interested in that. So notice that I just checked a box for each of these. Now, something I think will be really beneficial for you if you are doing this in JAMOVI is to pick your outliers. And I would say pick the most extreme 3 values on either side, because this could be helpful when you're looking at the actual plots of this data. So next, we're going to go to the section that says plots. So I clicked on this little button right here. We want a histogram. And if you want to see the distribution of the data, how it's distributed, if it's unimodal or multimodal or bimodal, you can also click on density, which is going to overlay the distribution of the data on top of the histogram. Now, one other thing, as you're going to see, we're not really going to be able to do a histogram for gender because we either have male or female, it's dichotomous, and you can't really do a histogram with non-continuous data. So we can see if we can do a bar plot here. And this will also produce bar plots of the rest of the data. So what I love about JAMOVI is that just by checking a box, all of the data analyses are done for you automatically. So I'm going to go ahead and look through this data right now. So here we have our descriptive statistics. I'm not going to spend too much time on these because I want you to do some critical thinking about the data that you obtain. But I would say pay a lot of attention to the ranges because they might tell you something useful. And I would also say take a look at your extreme values for each of these. So pay particular attention to Beck depression inventory, the Beck depression inventory. So gender did create a count, but gender can't be treated as numeric. So we have a nice bar plot, like we have a bar plot, but we do not have the histogram. Here's the bar plot for GPA. And I'm going to go ahead and get rid of the bar plot. The bar plot can be useful for gender, but it's not going to work as easily for continuous data. So here's the histogram for GPA. Here is the histogram and the overlaid distribution for subjective well-being. Here's height, and I hope you're noticing that height is bimodal. And then finally, we have the Beck depression inventory, and I hope that you notice by looking at this that something is a little bit off here. So this is how you would do it in JAMOVI. Now I briefly want to show you how you would do this in Excel. So if you want to do this in Excel, what you're going to need is something called the Data Analysis Tool Pack. So I've mentioned this a couple of times, but I may not have necessarily given you enough time to think about how to use this. So what we are going to do, we are going to go into our section called File, and we're going to go Options at the very bottom of the screen. When you get to Options, I want you to check out a section called Add-ins. So you will notice that I already have the Active Application add-in for the Analysis Tool Pack, as well as the Analysis Tool Pack VBA. If you notice that you do not have this, go down to Manage and click Go, and then just check the box to make sure that the Analysis Tool Pack is added for you. So again, I'm going to go ahead and select my data. And you can do some very basic level descriptive statistics as well as histograms for our data. Now, one thing I will mention when you're selecting the data, don't include participant because it will analyze participant. To analyze our data, don't go to this. So it says analyze data, don't go there. You want to go to data, and you want to go to this section that's called data analysis, and hopefully you can follow along with my cursor. So we go to the data tab and we go to data analysis. This is going to open up the data analysis tool pack, and the first thing that I'm going to do is do some descriptive statistics. So it's going to ask me to select an input range. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, even though I already kind of did it. And I'm a little annoyed that I have to do it again, but it'll move pretty quickly and it'll start to slow down once I get to 200 so that I just don't keep scrolling down forever. So here's my input range. We have it grouped by column, so each column is its own variable. You can also opt to do this by rows if that's how you organize them. We have our labels in our first row, so that first row is labels. We need to check that box to make sure that it doesn't treat a label as data because it's not going to know what to do with that. We want summary statistics, and we can go ahead and click OK. Input range contains non-numeric data, so one of the things you're going to find, it doesn't like it when you do gender. So we're going to go ahead and change our input range. We're only going to look at these 4. So we're only going to look at the descriptive data for our continuous variables where we can actually get averages on. So we're going to go ahead and click OK for our summary statistics. And here you can actually see, and I'm going to kind of move this out a little bit. So we have the mean for each is right here. The standard error of the mean, which we'll talk about a little bit later, the median, the mode, the standard deviation, the variance. You don't need to worry about kurtosis and skew. We have the range. The range might be useful here. We have the minimum and the maximum. And we have the count of the data. So we have our descriptive statistics here. Now we're going to go ahead and do our histograms. And again, we can't really do this with gender because it's nominal data. So as a result, we're only going to do histograms for these 4 items. So I don't need a bin range. This will pick bin ranges for me automatically. So if you don't know what bins to use, you can leave it blank. Also, make sure when you're doing the histogram that you've selected chart output. Click OK. Oh, I accidentally hit gender again. So let's make sure that we pick the right one. And we also need to specify that labels are in that first row. Oh, no. There we go. So I'm going to click and unclick and fix that. We're going to go ahead and do labels. I don't know what's going on with this. Let me pause for a minute and see what's going on and why it's making a mistake. Okay, so I kind of figured out what happened here. So you'll kind of notice in my data selection, I kept picking labels. For whatever reason, it only seems to want to make a histogram when you, oh, you know what it is? And I think I figured it out. It is treating all of this data all together as being one data set. So this is the part that you're not going to like. You are going to have to select each one at a time. So you're going to have to make 4 separate histograms for this one. If you're finding that that's a little time consuming, I would encourage you to try to do JAMOVI where you can get all 4 histograms taken care of quickly. So we go to data analysis. So I have GPA, we make sure that we have the label, and we click OK. So here is the bin for GPA in this instance. Notice that it's picking some very odd, I think the numbers are a little bit off. I'm going to want to fix that. I don't know what's going on with this. Let me fix this one more time. So I actually ended up looking at the data, and what happened is that for this one where the bins look really off and you can't have a GPA of 5.78, I had accidentally scrolled my cursor over and picked multiple columns at once. So be very careful if you're using a trackpad. Make sure that you only have one column, and you can see that this is more in line with what you would see for an actual GPA. So as you're looking at the output, look to see if what you are seeing is realistic in terms of the data. But yeah, this is the one for GPA. So make sure that because you're doing 4 separate ones on 4 separate pages, that you are labeling things appropriately. As you can kind of see, this one's a little bit more time consuming. So if you want to go ahead and use JAMOVI, you can. But I've also shown you a pretty straightforward way to do this on Excel as well. Don't make the mistakes I made when you scroll, and you should be totally fine. I will see you soon. Bye.